that last beat, but it didn't go. Well, you gotta love those YNAB wins.
Never gets old.
You know who does get old though? Jesse. And I can say that because I am technically 2 years older than him, which he pointed out in our very first interview before I was hired. So we also apparently did not have an HR department then.
Yeah, sometimes I guess I forget he's been doing this for 20 years.
Oh, you forgot? Allow me to show you. I have some evidence. And I just want to, I don't even want to rush this part because I want to give you guys a chance to kind of soak it in. There's so many options. There's so many options. So join me in welcoming to the stage, with arguably one of his best haircuts of all time, the father of this method that has changed so many of our lives, one of the most genuine, wise, and hilarious people I've ever known, Jesse Mecham. You're welcome.
Yeah. Oh boy. You would think we were selling like resort packages in the back, because that's a tactic you know they use. They make a room really cold, and that I think in some way that's supposed to make you want to buy stuff. So we're sold out of merch. No, I think there maybe is a little bit left. 20 years. That's. Someone asked me like, does it get old? You know. If you're saying the same thing over and over again, does it get old? But the trick is you're saying it new to the other person. And so it doesn't get old unless you feel like they're not listening to you. And then I do feel a little bit of a loss there. But if I'm ever interviewed by someone or just having a shot at trying to explain this thing to them, it hasn't gotten old yet. Explaining to them, just, it matters, you know, this matters. People will often ask me, did you ever think that it would be this? No, absolutely not. They say, oh, you're very entrepreneurial. And no, I am not. I am not entrepreneurial. Entrepreneurs like start 8 things, you know, and they can't get enough of it. And I have had enough of this. This is plenty for me. I like just this one thing. It was really for the rent. We mentioned that a while ago. Like, we just needed to make rent. And someone else asked me, when did you know it was going to be a thing for real? It was 5 years in that I was thinking, I should probably treat this as like a real thing. And then 10 years after that is when we got an HR person. So it all kind of came together, became real. I genuinely did not know that you weren't supposed to ask someone how old they were. So, yeah. But 20 years, so I've been YNABing longer than anybody, and no one can ever take that away from me. First full-time employee was Taylor, though, because I wasn't quite sure I wanted to commit to it, but I hired him full-time. He took a pay cut, actually. He took a big pay cut to come and he went from working for a video game company, and then told his bosses, I hope I get this right, Taylor. He told his bosses, like, hey, I'm going to work for this guy full-time. We're going to be making budgeting software. And he probably shouldn't have said budgeting software because they're like, oh, gross, don't do that, you know. But he told them that. And they tried to convince him. They're like, listen, man, you're going off to this startup with this, like, nothing's going to work. It's super risky. You're taking a huge risk. And he did take a big pay cut. And I don't know how much later it was that Taylor's company that he was at basically shuttered. Those liars. It was a month later. It was a month later after they were telling him with straight faces, don't do it, Taylor, don't take this risk. And they had like some firing sheet in their back pocket. They're like, oh, he is on there. Well, shoot, I shouldn't have said that. I don't know how that works, you know? But 20 years, that's it. I just kind of marvel at that. Well, that's all I got. That was basically it. No, I told them I don't have any prepared notes. But I want to tell you a story that's super recent and super old at the same time. And it's about me and Julie. Probably 4 weeks ago, we just got back. Speaking of international travel, this is my YNAB win. We just got back from a trip with 5 of our 7 kids. 2 weren't invited because they're adults, they have to pay their own way. And they can't afford it. So, because they're in college and they're broke, and everyone needs to have that experience. So, how dare I rob them of that experience of stress and strain? Maybe a good idea will pop out of their scarcity, you know? Maybe that'll happen. It doesn't land well when you're like, scarcity, trust me, it's great, you know? As I'm eating a ribeye steak, just staring at him, you know? I could eat 2 of these if I wanted. I'd feel kind of sick, but I could force it, you know? So, and they're like, Dad, do you have any extra milk in here? I'm like, there's a clumpy one, you can have it, it's in the back. I forgot what I was saying. So, anyway, our YNAB win, we went on this awesome European trip. It was so great. So fun, and we could just be present with the kids, and I didn't have a money worry in the world. And so that was a YNAB win. But just before that, I don't know what weekday it was, but there was kind of a quiet time in the house, a little bit of a rare quiet time in the house. And I had been kind of telling Julie, so full disclosure, because Julie's not here, I'll disclose it for her. Like, one's the YNABber, one's not. I'm the YNABber. Thankfully, I'm also the spender. And so it works, like I can kind of keep myself in check. And Julie's naturally just kind of saves, even with that stupid Nordstrom card she has. So, no, that saved our marriage. Big plus on that. There's a backstory to it that I can tell you later. But, well, I'll tell you now. Okay, the key with the Nordstrom card is the deal was we had a clothing category, and she would buy stuff not even for her, for the kids or whatever. So you can't be like, why are you buying clothing for the kids? How dare you, you know? She's like, what shoe size is Max? And I was like, who's Max? You know, that was kind of like I said, oh, he's the middle one, that's right. But she would buy the clothing, and then it would come, and then you guys know the drill, it doesn't all fit, and then you have to send it back. So if you're doing YNAB, and you're like saying like, okay, we spent the clothing. And I'm like, oh, hey, we're over in clothing. And she'd be like, no, we're not. And I'm like, listen, like, here it is. We are over. She's like, it's refunding. Look at that big pile over there in the room. Like, it's all going to go back. And so I'm just like, do I cover it? Do I not cover it? Do I wait? What if it rolls over into the month and there's not a red arrow anymore? Oops. Then what happens? It was the loss of the red arrow that caused me to get a Nordstrom card, basically. And so that was the scheme we hatched. We got the Nordstrom card, and now this is going to really bother some of you, but that Nordstrom card is just like this little in-out category of refunds and purchases, and then every once in a while the payment hits, and I'm like, that was what goes into the clothing category. So it's like miscellaneous and then miscellaneous. It's like 2 layers deep of obfuscation, and it works. It works really well. Now I definitely forgot where I was at. So we're 20 years into this, and I had been working with Julie for the last few weeks, just kind of laying seeds of like, hey, I feel like YNAB's I'm kind of going through the motions with it a little bit. Like, I'm doing it, I'm reconciling, not daily, and I'm also not doing drugs, but I'm just doing it. Like, and we reconcile regularly. I'm mostly on the phone with it, it's a kind of habit that's changing. But I would just kind of tell her like, hey, I just feel like we're kind of aimless. And so a couple days before that trip, I don't think I framed it as like a date night, but I just said, hey, can we just sit down? And she was packing. That's what I was like, how did I have her captive? That was it. She was packing. So I'm sitting on this little sofa we have in our room, and she's just kind of bouncing around, like laying stuff out, kind of thinking things through. And we were playing this super fun game, especially if you have one partner that's not really into looking at the app so much. You can play the game of guess how much we spend in blah. And she's way wrong on it. And she was so wrong. I said, guess how much we spend in clothing? And she's like, I don't even know what she guessed. She was off by like, not an order of magnitude off, but off. And so off that she's just like, wait a minute, that doesn't check out. Because she actually prides herself on just kind of naturally being pretty aware. So my little like, hey, let's kind of get resynced up, took a diversion where we were literally looking through Nordstrom card statements. And I was like, this is feeling pretty old school. And she's like, what was that? And I was trying to prove to her like, yeah, this much money really did go out. So we got that kind of cleared up. And she was kind of indignant about the amount that we had spent of late in clothing. And it was cool to see. I was kind of watching her be like, oh, I don't want to spend that much. It was fun. And then, she's not here, so I could throw her under another bus if I needed to, but then I looked at another category that's maybe a little closer to my heart. That's my woodworking category. And I was like, what am I been doing here? And it was more than I would have guessed. So like this little awareness muscle kind of came back online a little bit. So what we did, I used the new feature where you put in your expected income, which, that was blasphemy years ago. You guys ever built a religion where you didn't know the rules that you were building when you built it? Anyone know? It's a trick. It's a trick. When you find out you are violating Rule 5B of a religion you created, it's a little meta on you. But so I look at our paychecks and I was like, okay, here's our expected income. I drop it in. And I just started messing with the targets. And Julie's packing and kind of planning. And I would just ask her stuff like, well, how much do you think we should do in clothes? And she's like, well, not what we're doing. I was like, well, what do you think? She's like, half of that. So I was like, okay. And then we started thinking through category structures a little bit. We were kind of nerding out a little bit, it felt like. And we walked through the entire category structure. And I set targets on everything. And our targets were higher than our expected income. And I was like, well, that's also noteworthy in this situation. So I called HR and I was like, I need a raise, So it was really fun to kind of do YNAB again. I guess that's what I'm saying. Like 20 years in, you can kind of slide away from it a little bit. And I think that's just a part of it. That's just natural. And so it wasn't like I was saying, I can't believe there was no shame there. It was just like, hey, let's explore this again. And we felt different. We felt better. I think it made the trip better. And the trip already had money. It was fully funded, ready to go. Like we weren't worried about it at all. But this holistic kind of view that we had created and captured, we ended that little session packed for the trip and also like kind of recommitted to it. I got a new putter for Father's Day, and you didn't miss Father's Day. It's happening in a few days. But I already know I got it because I was there when we bought it. And I'm super excited about it. I just moved money out of woodworking into the Father's Day category, and I moved some from the golf category into the Father's Day category. And we got to figure it out. One of our changes was to have a category group called Big Days. And we were a little more thoughtful about that. Anniversary, Father's Day, Mother's Day, stuff like that. Birthdays for all of the kids, even the college kids, It was cool to have that experience of doing YNAB again. And so I won't say I'm glad that I felt like we were kind of going through the motions for a little while, but I am glad that we kind of recommitted. But is this mine? Did anyone else have this yet? Or are they so on? Is this Ashley's? Okay. It's just if it's Ashley's glass, it's probably like specially crafted crystal that she researched. I wish it was next to a notebook that was really beautiful. Drink halfway through, check, Love Ashley. I think for the last little bit, I'll tell you a little story from last year. We were swimming in the pool, and that's basically the best thing about summer. You're swimming in the pool. It starts around 4 o'clock. I can hear it when I'm in my office because my office is near the pool. So I start to kind of hear the splashing, and it's kind of like, oh, how quick could I get things done and get in there for a little bit? And so I remember one day I was swimming in the pool with Brooks, who at the time was 4, learning how to swim, and I was trying to get him not afraid to hold his breath, right, and get his face in the water. So the thing that I was doing was showing him how great it sounds when your ears are in the water and like you make a noise. And so I would go to one end of the pool and he would be in the shallow end of the pool and I'd be like, ready, go. And then I would say something and he was kind of marveling that, the sound would travel through the water really easily, even though we were pretty far apart. And I felt like Bill Nye the Science Guy, you know? And so he was pretty amazed at me, and I didn't tell him this, but later on I was thinking about it. I'm like, oh yeah, naturally, water is like a great medium for sound. That's how radars works, you know? Or sonar works, I guess you'd say. And when we talk about money, this whole thing, we kind of, if money's the top piece, we kind of dive deep into it, and we get into like the psychology of it, and we have Ben talking about money being a portal, which I'm totally gonna steal at some point in an interview. Or we have Dave that's like, I feel like he's having us paint like happy Bob Ross trees with our money. Like that's kind of the vibe I get from Dave. It's just very much just like, doesn't this just feel good, you know? And so that we really can dive into the weeds, but I want to just take a few minutes maybe and just talk about money itself and maybe make a pitch for loving it. And I won't even quote the Bible, you know. When we talk about that money, a lot of times an economist would say, well, it's a medium of exchange. It's a unit of account. It's a store of value, right? Those are the things they'll pop off at you. And you'll say, well, what makes something money? And there are usually attributes of a thing that make it money, like that it's sound. Like when they say like, oh, it's sound money, that literally comes from someone like dropping a gold coin or listening to it, flicking it and hearing it make a different sound. A fake, a counterfeit gold coin wouldn't have the same sound. So when you say that's sound money, it comes from that. So something becomes money, and they call it this medium of exchange. And I've just been kind of obsessing over the fact that this medium of exchange. And then when Brooks and I were doing that little experiment in the water, I was like, oh, well, when you're doing this thing where you're communicating with each other, you're actually not worried about you're not worried about the water. Like Brooks was trying to listen hard to hear what I was saying. He was worried about the message, and I wanted to make sure I was saying the message. And so we're really caring about like the message sent and the message received, and the water, like who cares? And isn't that a little bit how money is, where it's this super important thing, but also just the thing that everything flows through, and in a way, somewhat invisible. And I think when people arrive at this place of, well, this absence of second guessing, I think what happens is money, in this counterintuitive way, kind of disappears a little bit, and it's just you spending it and realizing what you want from it. And I mentioned earlier, I think when I was talking with Todd up here, another great definition that I like of money is it's just its next use. So when you say, well, what's the $20? You're like, well, it's just $20, but what is it? Well, maybe it's going to be, something from the back there, or maybe it's going to be Ben's Easy Pass that he needs to buy so he's not a fugitive anymore. Like it's got to be something, but it has no other value to it except however we use it. And so when we talk about people spending their money one way and feeling this way, they're just feeling this friction because it's just not lined up. And then when it lines up, isn't it true that the money just kind of, it just kind of disappears? So this really important thing suddenly appears unimportant. And as you work YNAB more and more, and you follow the method, you're given every dollar a job, you're asking yourself these questions, it's interesting that you can focus on it so that it can kind of fade out of focus, and you get to just be doing the thing. Christmas morning with the thing, with the kids in Europe for the thing, just present at the thing. And that's why it just gets me every time where money kind of invades our headspace and kind of wrecks everything. It's no surprise that people say, well, yeah, money it's just a chore. Like, it's just something I got to do. Like, now I'm an adult, I have to do this. It's no surprise because it's always just nagging at you. It's never done the thing you want it to do. It's never become what you wanted it to be. And the other interesting thing about this idea of a medium of exchange is there's this other side of it. So as you get the money through, we've talked about this already, like just blood, sweat, tears, calories. I mentioned this a lot on the podcast. The best definition, I think, for money is just you. And sometimes people might traditionally say, Jesse, I am not my bank balance. And I would say, you are absolutely not. Bank balances are liars. Everybody knows that. You got to give that, every dollar has to have a job, and that balance lies and lies until you give every dollar a job. Then you start to know. But that bank, when people are like, I'm not my bank balance, of course you're not. When I say money is you, I don't mean that there's any kind of inherent value in you that's attached to that. You're of infinite inherent value. It doesn't matter. But when we talk about money being you, I just mean, boy, you poured a lot of time and effort into that. So now that you have it, it's this beautifully efficient store of that economic energy. And what do you want to do with it? And that's when you get to be like, okay, what will it be next? And at this, at risk of sounding maybe a little bit too dreamy, that's kind of what this is all about, is reminding you all that it's got to be about you. And it's a really fun thing to say, hey, everyone, do money really, really well. And by the way, as Ben said, you're the expert. And so we get to just kind of back off. We teach you the method, and we get to just back off and then watch the magic happen. There was a whole big to-do up before you all came. I don't know if you noticed, but before you all came, this place was a zoo, And we really cleaned it up nice. I felt like it was like kids coming down the stairs, or like parents coming down the stairs, and the kid's supposed to have their room clean, and they hear the noise. I felt like that was a little bit of the vibe the YNAB team had as we were approaching all of you arriving. It's we got to get this done, and we pulled it off. But I was pretty useless at one point. At most of the time, I was pretty useless. But I was standing right about there, and I had just noticed that the screens were going, and they were just doing these testimonials of people, picture and then a quote. And I'll be honest, I got just kind of locked in on reading the success and just sitting there kind of soaking it up. These examples of someone just saying, money used to be, at best, a chore, a to-do, but at worst, a strain, a stress, a negative, an evil even. And then you're reading these success quotes, and they're like, and now it means literally the exact opposite. And because money is just as important as health and relationships, you can't, to have that transformation where you take something that is that important and you completely flip it around to be imagination instead of consternation. I mean, that's why this doesn't get old. That's why it doesn't get old. And then there's this little plus side on the medium of exchange equation where when you're nailing your spending, I don't know if any of you have had this experience. Maybe raise your hand if you have, but if you're nailing the spending side, you're feeling like your spending it really matters, like you're actually getting ahead in whatever way is most important for you. Have you noticed that it changes how you think about earning? Has anyone noticed that? We were getting some hands. I feel like it suddenly gives meaning to earning that maybe wasn't there, because now you're no longer just on this horrific treadmill of well, I got to do this because, you got to do it. Instead, you're like, no, I do this because look at what money gets me. And when you start to realize what money gets you, then earning the money isn't just well, you got to earn money. But it's no, look what earning gets me. So you have you consistent on that spend side of the equation, on that medium of exchange. And then you start to get maybe more of you on the earning side of the equation. And so it's just you all the way through. And we don't care how you go from earning to spending. You happen to go through the medium of money, whatever that medium may be. But it's just you all the way through. And that's what makes this both transformational, marginally cult-like at times, but that's what makes it not get old for me. And even on that earning side, I got to kind of look at the earning for myself and say, I don't really enjoy the part of my job where I have to manage Lindsay. No, I'm just kidding. I love Lindsay, even though she is a little older than me, by about 2 years, if I recall. But I realized, gosh, 4 years ago, maybe, 5, 6, at some point I just kind of had my eye on Todd a little bit, and I thought, man, Todd seems to be doing a lot of the things that I don't know how to do very well. To say it generously, things I don't want to do. But not so generously, it was like, boy, there are some things he does better. And it was fun for me to look at that earnings side for me personally and be able to kind of craft my own, how do I earn money? Where do I spend my time? And I get to spend it doing this right here, trying to convince people that you should love your money, because your money lets you express yourself more genuinely, forcefully, accurately in the world. And this won't get old. So I really hope that 20 years from now, I'm up here, probably back, in this exact location for a little bit of like a retro or something, where I can just say like, yeah, I'm still not tired of teaching people this. And so even if it is hard to convince people, I hope that you with me will not grow tired of telling people, hey, money matters. And if you can just figure out, just giving every dollar a job, ask yourself those questions, be patient with yourself as you have fits and starts, figure out how to make it meaningful for you. It is life-changing. It has changed my life. Thank you very, very much for coming.